Now, moving on to another breaking news that is just coming in is that the Supreme Court, Supreme Court has junked immunity to corrupt MPs and MLAs. Massive setback for the corrupt lawmakers. Now, the Supreme Court has junks immunity to lawmakers. Breaking news coming there. We are trying to get you more information on that. The Supreme Court has junked plea by 14 opposition parties accusing Centre of misusing CBI and ED. Of course, the Supreme Court has junked immunity to MLAs and MPs. We are trying to get you more information on that. Massive setback, of course, for the corrupt lawmakers out there. It's a massive setback for corrupt lawmakers. The Supreme Court has junked immunity to corrupt MPs and MLAs. Right, massive setback for the corrupt lawmakers there. Supreme Court junks immunity to corrupt MLAs and MPs. We are trying to connect to our reporter to get you more details on that, but it's breaking news coming in. It's of course a massive setback for the corrupt lawmakers out there. The Supreme Court has junked immunity to corrupt MPs and MLAs. The seven. We are joined in by Advocate Swapnil Kothari. A very good morning to you, Mr. Kothari. Now, it's a massive setback, of course, for the corrupt lawmakers. The Supreme Court junks immunity to corrupt MPs and MLAs. What is your take on this?
It's a fantastic judgment. In addition to the electoral bonds judgment, the setting aside of the Chandrachud mayoral election process, and now this, the third one in the row, which is a constitution bench judgment, a 7-judge constitution bench judgment. The Supreme Court is ensuring that the democratic politics, or should I say democratic polity in this country is sacrosanct, is kept sacrosanct. And look at the words of the Chief Justice of India. The lawmaker cannot be above the law. How brilliantly and simply can you put it? So it's very clear that the Narasimha Rao judgment was found deficient and hence set aside. And the Supreme Court is making sure that the immunity claimed by the Parliament, saying that, look, we are a different terrain, so are you, and so is the executive. So all three of us are separate arms of the government or of our democracy. So one should not step into the other. But the Supreme Court said, sorry, we will step in should you be found taking bribes and making speeches as a quid pro quo, or any other parliamentary function that you perform as a quid pro quo for bribes. So the Supreme Court is making sure that the parliamentary process is cleansed of any of those bribery or quid pro quo mechanisms that will always operate in a democracy, because any powers that be, any conglomerates, any corporate conglomerate, or any other people who have the kind of money power that people have in this country will try to get something or the other advanced through illegitimate means, through politicians. And should those politicians be found corrupt, then they will be taken to task, and they are not immune from prosecution, because the bribery does not fall within the immunity aspect so as claimed by the process under the Constitution, because that is separate. To say that parliamentary proceedings are going on and people should not have access to that, or people or the judiciary should not interfere in that, that is fine. But when there is corruption, then you are just another public servant who is taking bribes. And then the Prevention of Corruption Act, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and any other applicable legislation will come into force, and the entire wrath of the law will fall upon you. That is what the Supreme Court is saying. It would be a great advice from me or a suggestion from me to all your viewers that this is a judgment to be read. I'm looking forward to reading this judgment in its entirety because this was something which I knew was coming, and this was a unanimous judgment, a unanimous 7-judge judgment, as you had a unanimous 9-judge judgment on privacy in Puttaswamy's case. So these are very, very important judgments, landmark decisions, landmark judgments passed by the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is ensuring that the Constitution is followed to the letter, and the people in this country who are becoming more and more informed will definitely, appreciate this humongous effort of the Supreme Court, especially in the last 2 months to ensure, one with the electoral bond, the second with the Chandigarh mayoral election process, and this, the most important one, the third, on the parliamentary immunity, so as claimed by the politicians for taking bribes, etc.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Swapnil. I would also want to, quote this judgment, of course, ruled by the 7-judge bench, which says an MP or an MLA can't claim immunity from prosecution on a charge of bribery in connection with the vote or speech in the Legislative House. Of course, if you could, give your viewpoint on this. Of course, you welcome the judgment, I know that.
Yes. So basically, as I said in my earlier remarks, what the Supreme Court is saying, that the vote on the House or a speech in the House. So what, to put it simpliciter for your viewers so that they can understand what the court is trying to say. Say, for example, if I'm a big corporate conglomerate and I want some things to be said in the parliamentary proceeding, and I tell a minister that please, take this money, huge sum of money, whatever it is, and make this particular statement. Obviously, that statement is going to benefit me in some form or the other. So, or solicitor, I have a particular view, and I want this to be done in the parliament, to be said in the parliament. I don't have access to that because I'm not a parliamentarian. But I have good friends with a particular parliamentarian. So I tell him that you take this money, alternatively you take this bungalow, and you make these speeches continuously or make these kind of things in the parliamentary proceeding. My ends are served. So that is exactly what the Supreme Court is saying. Sorry, if you are found to have taken bribe for making this sort of a statement or a speech or a vote, then you will be prosecuted. You cannot claim prosecutorial immunity, which you otherwise have from making statements or your regular parliamentary functions in the parliament.
Right, Mr. Kothari, thank you for speaking to Republic News, of course. Now, my colleague Abhishek Kapoor is joining us on this. A very good morning to you, Abhishek. Of course, it's a landmark decision, and we were just speaking to Mr. Swapnil Kothari, who said that the parliamentary process is now cleansed, and now it's a massive setback for the corrupt lawmakers.
Well, that's how it should have been, and the 5-judge bench essentially overturning the 1998 PV Narasimha Rao versus the Union of India verdict. It was both preposterous and a little comical in some ways that bench had given that verdict, giving immunity to legislators, MPs, MLAs, despite having accepted bribe, and that despite that having been proved. I beg your pardon, it was PV Narasimha Rao versus CBI, and despite the fact that the CBI had proven that those MPs of Jharkhand Mukti Morcha and Ajit Singh, for example, had taken bribe, the court had come to the conclusion as parliamentarians or legislators, they enjoy some element of immunity as to what they do inside parliament. Now, that's going to be an ongoing debate, but this verdict, overturning the 1998 verdict, corrects a very preposterous wrong. And comical element was that because the JMM MPs took the bribe and voted in favor of the Narasimha Rao government, they were let go of scot-free, while Ajit Singh, who took the money and later did not vote, was penalized. So I think that those bid have been corrected. CJI really setting the record straight with the observations he has made. In fact, during the hearings also, the kind of observations that were being made by the court, it was amply clear, becoming amply clear that this case would be overturned. And now the CJI is saying that if you have accepted bribe, there is no immunity that is left for you, and that you have to be tried under prevalent criminal laws. And the CJI has, for example, observed that if you are making a speech or conducting yourself in any manner inside the house which is influenced by your having taken a bribe, then the immunity of you as a parliamentarian goes. That privilege you cannot seek for your conduct inside the house. And so Article 105 in Section 2 and Article 194 Section 2, which provide privileges to the members of parliament and the immunity, consequent immunity, they cannot be invoked. And the Supreme Court verdict of 1998 to that extent was absolutely wrong, and hence this bench led by the CJI is overturning that Narasimha Rao versus CBI verdict and taking away the immunity of legislators and parliamentarians who conduct themselves in any manner influenced by an element of bribe. And so I think, the court essentially, with this verdict, bringing an element of integrity in the process of democracy, because remember, procedures like vote of no confidence or vote of confidence in parliament, they test the strength of democracy and the mandate, and to game it by buying votes is something which compromises the entire edifice and the architecture of democracy. And the court really correcting that wrong which was committed by that bench of the Supreme Court in 1998 in the Narasimha Rao versus CBI verdict.